Hello guys, welcome back onto the channel. Yesterday, Polyphony Digital released update 1.13. They added a bunch of new track layouts to the Blue Moon Bay Speedway track. They added 12 new cars. They added a new scapes theme, the snow scapes. And they also changed a bunch of stuff in sports mode, and that's exactly what I like to talk about in this video. So I'm gonna put on the screen all the changes that they made in this update, and a lot of them got me really excited because this might mean a change for the better in the sports mode. So for those of you out there who complain about having to deal with dirty drivers all the time, which is not something that I have experienced myself, but I know that for a fact a lot of people deal with that on a daily basis. I watch a lot of people, a lot of GT Sport videos on YouTube, and I see a lot of these people dealing with this type of players pretty much every video they upload onto their channels. So I think these changes are gonna be a welcome change that's gonna address at least some of the concerns that people have been having in regards to how the sports mode works in the game. So the first change that they listed is the sportsmanship rating, SR, and penalty judgment algorithms have been improved. That's a little bit vague, we don't know what this is all about. The second one is, in a collision between two cars, a penalty will now be added to the driver rating, as well as incurring a time penalty depending on the situation. I haven't tried this for myself, I haven't got into the sport mode yet, but judging from what they said in this particular paragraph, I would assume that this goes beyond ramming other people. As you know, before this update was out, if you rammed someone at a high speed, if you missed your braking point, regardless of being intentional or not, if you missed your braking point and you drove straight onto the back of another person's car in front of you, you will get a time penalty because of that, and you will probably get ghosted out for a couple seconds as well in order to avoid further collisions. And what apparently this change does is go beyond the ramming, and I need to test this out for myself, as I said, but I would believe that this could apply to cars driving into each other. One of the ways that people found an exploit in this penalty system is whenever they want to get rid of you, when they're driving side by side to you and they want to get rid of you, on any upcoming corners, they're gonna try to drive as wide as possible in an attempt to edge you out wide. That's the way that they can try to push you off the track without getting penalized. And I have my fingers crossed for this paragraph to mean exactly that, to penalize people who try to edge you out wide or just drive onto the side of your car, try to push you off in any ways, not just ramming people off. If a driver continues to drive without complying with a certain amount of time penalty, additional time penalties will be added. So what that means is that you probably need to run your penalty out as quickly as possible, because the way that people do right now, it becomes a sort of a strategy thing. You get a penalty, and let's say you have maybe, I don't know, a 14-second gap over pretty much every racer behind you, and this becomes a strategy, because if you incurred a time penalty of 3 seconds, you can afford to cross the finish line because you're still gonna win the race. 14 minus 3, 11. So you're gonna lose only 3 seconds on your 14-second gap. That's math, pure math, and that's how people usually do these things. They get a penalty. If they have a gap wide enough, they're gonna cross the line anyways, because they're not gonna worry about that. They have a nice gap to be able to cover the time penalty. If I understood this correctly, this means that once you get a penalty, you need to run that out before the end. I would assume that you need to run that out as quickly as possible, because if you keep racing with the time penalty without running that out, you're gonna get more penalty on top of that penalty, and it's gonna accumulate up to a point where you're gonna get an impossible time penalty to run out, and you're gonna end up losing a lot of positions by the end of the race. So I think this change is very welcome, because this is gonna prevent people from driving dirty and thinking that they can get away with that. And sometimes even people who drive clean, they sometimes get a time penalty. They can get away with that either. They need to run out the penalty before the race is over, or maybe in a certain couple of laps, otherwise they're gonna get more penalties on top of the penalties that they already had incurred. A driver may now be disqualified from a race if the number of collisions and shortcuts they accumulate becomes too great. That's pretty self-explanatory, and I've seen examples of that happening before this update. I was watching, I don't remember exactly the guy's channel name, but I was watching a YouTuber showing a dirty driver in the same race that he was taking part in, and you saw that the guy cut a lot of corners. He didn't brake, he just went straight for it, going over the grass, going off the track to try to cut the corner as much as possible. And it was a 10-lap race, and by I think the 8th lap, this guy got disqualified. He got booted out of the race. And so this happened already, so I don't know exactly what this change might mean. I would assume that it doesn't have anything to do with time penalties, though. I think that this is an algorithm that that's basically gonna judge how you drive without considering the time penalty. So if you're the type of player who collide a lot with other cars, who cut corners a lot, and somehow you manage to get away with that without a time penalty, I would assume that the game is gonna penalize these people by disqualifying them and booting them out of the race. Now, this is one of the best ones in the list. Cars over a lap behind will now be ghosted and will not be subject to collisions, only enabled in sport mode. This is awesome, because one of the worst things in any racing game, it doesn't matter if it's GT Sport, if it's Forza Motorsport, Forza Horizon, any racing games, they should ghost out back markers. Period. This is not something that should be even discussed in 2018. They need to ghost out back markers, because people who are far ahead in the first place usually have to deal with people who just cannot concede the idea of losing a race and accepting it. Back markers tend to try to screw up people who are in the top 3. That's a fact. A lot of people can confirm that. A lot of people have probably gone through that themselves. So I think it's a really great addition, or change actually, that they are finally start to ghost out back markers, so they are not a problem to people who are in the first place and somehow manage to lap a couple of racers. So this is really great, and I really think that every other racing game, regardless of being a simulation or an arcade racer, they should implement that into their games, period. Another thing that's great but at the same time can be abused, and I hope that Polyphony Digital is gonna check on every report, is that it is now possible to submit grief reports for misconduct of other users. This can be easily abused. That's quite obvious. A lot of people are gonna try to cause accidents, especially so if they already have a history with you. Like people who try to screw you over and somehow you manage to get away from this person. This person got frustrated because they tried to screw you over and they didn't have any success. These people can submit grief reports about you, claiming that you were the dirty one who screwed them over, and which is why you finished in first place. So I really hope that Polyphony Digital does this right. I really hope that they actually check into each and every report and compare it against the data that they have on every race that happens in GT Sport. And another change that's not necessarily listed in the sport mode, but it has to do with the lobby races, is that some of the sport mode penalties will also apply to lobby races. I've done a couple of lobby racing in this game. I play a lot more the sport mode because to me that's the most fun, but for people who play a lot of lobby racing, especially people who usually live stream this game and create open lobbies for people to join in, I don't know what the extent of these changes or what the extent of the penalties are gonna be, but lobby racing now are gonna be subject to penalties as well. Remains to be seen what kind of penalties we're talking about. I need to test that out. I don't know if that's an option that you can toggle on and off, or if it's just something that's gonna be applied across all of the races in lobby mode, regardless of which configuration you set your lobby to. But this is a really great thing to have, and the more stuff that they do to curb dirty players, the better. Dirty players in any racing game, they don't add anything. I know that for developers, they are a number that generates money for them, but for the player base, the player base who enjoy the game, who have fun playing the game, they don't add anything. And what I mean by that is that if companies decided to somehow start banning all of the dirty racers, all of the dirty players in any game, I don't think they would be missed at all. Dirty players are not welcome in any game. They ruin the experience, they ruin the fun. And as I usually said, I have already gotten in a couple of arguments via messages because of these people, and my argument is exactly the same, it doesn't change. A lot of people play games to get their minds off of things. They play games to get their minds off of work, to get their minds off personal problems, to get their minds off depression, to get their minds off of anything that they're going through. And then they meet these dirty players who makes these matters even worse. So they're not adding anything, they're not gonna be missed if they are banned, and I think this is a really great step towards the right direction in how to deal with these people in online racing games. But anyways, that's all I had to talk about these changes. These changes kind of went unnoticed to me. I didn't realize that they were implemented until I actually read the changelog. But I'm glad that they're finally here, and I hope that Polyphony Digital keeps on improving them and take it to the next level, and that other developers start following suit. But anyways, guys, I hope you found this video informative. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more GT Sport content, share the video with your friends and on your social media. It helps me out a lot, and I really appreciate the help. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. The links are in the description down below or at the beginning of the video. And I hope to see you guys on the next one. Bye.